In other world news, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is meeting the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas today as tensions soar in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. Civilians on both sides have been killed in recent weeks. Now, yesterday, Blinken met with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, where he reiterated the US's vision of a two-state solution to the conflict. Today, Blinken and Abbas are expected to discuss the Palestinian Authority's decision to suspend security cooperation with Israel in the light of deadly raids in Jenin last week. Well, to get some analysis then on Blinken's trip, I'm very pleased to be joined now by the Middle East expert Simon Mabon. He's at Lancaster University in the UK. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us on France 24.
Thanks for having me.
So Blinken yesterday talking about this goal of a two-state solution, but right now, clearly, there is no peace process. So how meaningful do you think that language is from him, and what do you think he's actually been able to achieve on this trip?
I think there's two issues at play here. The first is how meaningful is the language? Well, we've been hearing this for 20 odd years now, and very little has changed. The daily life of Palestinians has not changed. And Israelis themselves fear these types of incidents. So the language points to a moribund process, I think, and it's wishful thinking from officials. But in terms of what can be achieved on this trip, I think a great deal can be achieved, because without careful consideration and without the actions of prominent global diplomats, there is a real danger that this situation can escalate dramatically, which is not something that anyone would like to see.
Indeed, and we know that Mahmoud Abbas has suspended security cooperation with Israel in the aftermath of those raids in the West Bank last week. Obviously, we don't know what happened in those conversations behind closed doors, but it is expected that Blinken will push Abbas to reinstate that security cooperation with Israel. Is that making a big difference, do you think? Is that more likely to lead to attacks on Israelis, the fact that this cooperation isn't taking place right now?
I think what we've got going on here with Mr. Abbas is he's got his own domestic issues at play. He's got his relationship with the Palestinian people that's been called into question increasingly in recent months. People are increasingly dissatisfied with what the Palestinian Authority is doing for the Palestinians. And in light of this, I don't think he was left with much of a choice to suspend this cooperation with Israel. If he was to continue doing it, at a time when the Israeli state was continuing to embark on settlement building and was killing Palestinians, that would render all of his credibility null and void. So I think he's in a very difficult position right now.
Well, you talk about Mahmoud Abbas's credibility. Isn't the bigger problem for him right now is that he really doesn't have a mandate? I mean, elections were supposed to be held for several years. They haven't been held. There have been no elections in the Palestinian territories since 2006. And many Palestinians simply don't feel that he represents them.
I think that's pretty fair. They don't feel that he represents them. They're concerned that he's inert. He's not doing anything to resolve the day-to-day issues that they face politically, socially, economically. And of course, he's broadly complicit with Israel. Many Palestinians do not want to see that. So he's caught between a rock and a hard place here. But as you say, he's left with very little mandate.
Do you think behind the scenes Blinken is likely to be pushing Abbas to try and kick-start this process towards holding Palestinian elections, or is that really a long way away right now?
I think that's in the future right now. For the moment, I think what Mr. Blinken will be doing is trying to urge Mr. Abbas to get control of the situation, to call for calm, to try and prevent the various fringe groups across the Palestinian territories from escalating the situation, to try and take the sting out of it. Talking with Palestinian friends today, they've experienced this rising hostility, the increasingly tense situation affecting their daily lives, commuting across the territories. It's a very precarious situation right now.
Well, as you say, there may well be pressure on Abbas to try and stop these attacks taking place inside of Israel. But I wonder how much power you think Mahmoud Abbas actually has to stop them. I mean, after all, these do appear to be individuals acting alone and not linked to particular terror groups, and certainly not linked to his Fatah organization or to the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, that's a really big issue in the sense that he is the figurehead, he is the political figurehead of the Palestinian people. He is, as you say, elected, but elected a long time ago. But individuals across the Palestinian territories are angry, they're frustrated, they're largely without a sense of hope. They've not got the hope for the future. And as a consequence, people are getting, they're turning to other avenues to express their frustration, such as violence. And if that's the case, the only thing that Mr. Abbas can do is try and change the broader political climate. But as someone who's largely without a mandate, whose political career appears to be moribund, and is operating in the context of an increasingly right-wing Israeli government, it's very, very difficult to see what he can do right now.
Simon Mabon from Lancaster University in the UK. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.